All right, so I'm getting ready to go on a solo big game hunt all by myself to north central British Columbia, and so I'm kind of racing here to get a handful of videos done for everybody to play and load on the YouTube channel while I'm gone. And I cracked open the tell my story at howtohunt.com email last night. It's pretty overwhelming. There was a lot of encounters in there and notes from concerned people. We've had a lot of people had some unpleasant experiences out there. So where I am right now, coincidentally, I'll throw this picture up. You know, I've told people in the past, when it comes to photographing prints without snow, it's almost virtually impossible to get the lines, the outline of that print available on the phone or on the camera. And Sarah's behind the camera with me. She's here with me. We just got up here to this place in the Pemberton Valley, and we're within a quarter of a mile where there's been numerous reports of these things ripping around here, and I found a print. It's kind of funny. It is what it is. But I took Sarah over, showed her, and I got a piece of string out of the truck and I outlined it as best as I could. I mean, you could see the ridge around the heel all the way up the ball and the toes perfectly. And how I noticed it was I could see a handful of deer prints, because this is actually a route for blacktail deer to migrate. Well, they're actually hybrid mule deer blacktails here, and they migrate up and over this pass and down in the migrating timber, and it's typically the does that go down there first. So I'm not too concerned about really hunting here right now. I actually don't hunt here anyway. But anyway, what I'm saying is the deer migrating in here. So I'm looking for tracks nonstop. Just so you know, as a hunting guide and professional hunter and hunting on my own time, I am looking for tracks 100% of the time when I'm hunting any species. You know, you're always looking, you're learning, you're watching. But I'm looking for any fresh scratch in the dirt at all times. It's just out of habit, it's nature. And so I noticed a few deer tracks, fresh deer tracks, and that's got me really looking for tracks. And all of a sudden I saw a big indent in the bank. I'll throw a picture up here what I saw first. It's like, whoa, what's that? You know, 'cause it's not a deer print, it's not a bear print. It kind of looked kind of odd. And then about 6 foot distance away, I looked down, and here is the perfect frickin' outline of a large human-like print. Go figure. And definitely not a grizzly print. But I quickly grabbed Sarah and brought her over. So check this out. So you can see, you know, she's not familiar with this shit, and she's like, oh my God, yeah, it's full-on easy to see. You can see it was just a perfect pressed-in heel, perfect up to the toes. You can see a few of the toes, and they came around the ball. And then there's a 6 foot stride to the next one. And then I got a piece of string out of the truck, and I outlined it with string to take a photograph, and here it is right here. Obviously, it's another silly photograph. It'll mean basically nothing to anybody watching this, but it is what it is. And I think that's the 5th or 6th time I've found prints in my past. I don't get too worked up about it. It just is what it is. There's been thousands of them, but it was just funny and a coincidence that I just found. The print was right behind me about a quarter of a mile. And here I am sitting here getting ready to share some Sasquatch stories with you guys at the same moment. So there you go. Check that out. So that's the fresh mark that I noticed right there. Because I obviously noticed fresh deer prints, but that's the fresh mark. But I noticed it looked out of whack because it was so big. And then I went back here, and it's right here is where you can see this big indent, this big print right here. And that's what made me notice that one. But it was this mark right here first. This big chiseled out chunk. You can see the size of it. It's from here to there. And I knew a deer didn't do it at first glance. I'm like, oh, what the hell's that? And then I looked back, and there was that crisp, clear footprint right there. And that's how I came across it. Interesting to some. All right, so here's a story I'm going to share with you guys from a young guy, an elk hunter in north central Alberta. And he just had an experience which literally thousands of people have. And he sounds like he's dealing with it pretty good, but he wrote it out really well. And I found it quite interesting because it was elk hunting and how it happened and how it came about. And because that's what we're doing currently right now is elk hunting. And I always wondered what you might call up or what might mimic your calls, because I have read a few incidents of other people like calling in moose and stuff. Like one guy in Prince George told me he was calling in thought he was calling in a bull moose, but the call that he was ripping out was getting mimicked. He was getting mimicked identical to his moose call. And he found it really alarming, and it came right in kind of close, and then it went quiet, and he could hear a voice, and it scared the living crap out of him. It was very unnerving. But anyway, since I've heard about that story, I always wondered if elk hunters or anybody else would have something similar, and sure enough, listen to this one. So, September 1st, 2017. I'm an avid elk hunter from north central Alberta. I only archery hunt elk as I find it challenging, and the adrenaline rushes like no other. I was privileged enough to have an experience, this being one of a handful, but the only one that provided a sighting of any sort was something I cannot explain to my logical brain. The area is near the Long Lake Provincial Park in a grazing lease bordering the park boundaries. Closed from May 1st, November 1st with locked gates at all accesses. I had permission from the Grazing Association at the time to do my thing on foot, access only. I had taken my small family up to the end of the access road /mud hole, a mile into the timber that allows you to drop into a very large valley or into the plateau of 200 sections of community pasture. I had taken my 4x4 truck with my quad loaded into the end of the access so they could enjoy a nice campfire and the comforts while I hiked the pasture that is rimming the valley edge and locate and call. I've had wolves come to elk calls before and had bears decide to come and investigate, so this is not my first experience having things go sideways. After walking maybe 1.5 to maybe 2 miles from the truck, I found a nice drainage leading into the valley with a great elk trail, where I let out an echoing locate bugle. It resonated off the valley walls perfectly. I had a crude response. To the southeast in the valley, very noticeable, so I figured it must be at least 2 miles away across the valley. I hiked slower than slow when locating elk, and about 50 more yards, bracket 5 minutes, bracket, up the edge, I heard what sounded like a bugle from a lung-shot bull. Same sound. It was deep, like a very mature bull or something. What else could mimic that sound? Not convincing, but sparked curiosity as I've heard very different varieties of elk sounds before and many horrible elk callers, but I wanted to see who covered those 2 miles across a swamp and nearly vertical valley wall in 5 minutes. This crude bugle came across as a bugle, but not exactly toned correctly. It had the tone, but not the octave changes correct. After about 10 minutes, I heard a log snap. A log snap. About 100 yards into the thick stuff, which I interpret as an opportunity to get in position. I chirped out a couple cow calls and began moving in the sound's direction into the wind about 50 yards to where I think it will extricate the thick brush line. Arrow knocked and eyes wide. I sat with my ears pinned, not hearing a sound for roughly 5 minutes. And then the bomb dropped. I caught movement and began to realize that I'm seeing a human-shaped head, more egg-shaped than mine, black, peeking out from behind a large poplar tree. Just the top half of the head. As soon as my brain made sense of what the fuck I was seeing, it disappeared in a flash. Trees and logs snapping. Trees and logs snapping as it retreated back into the valley. I did the same, but back to the truck. When I got back to the truck, my wife asked if I had shot the bull as she heard it calling and heard it crash off. I told her I missed and packed up our shit and left. I still hunt that area, but I avoid the valley and I show respect when I'm on that land. I've heard things running at night. I've been rushed at a campfire by heavy footsteps, and the elk are consistently dwindling in that area. There's something out there, and it has me very curious. I find out how the provincial parks are all somehow a hotbed for activity. Well, there you go. I had to copy that email on here. I hope I didn't cut it short. I'm sorry if I did. I think I might have, damn it. But that's quite the experience, especially seeing the damn thing, looking at him, and mimicking his calling like that, and how fast across the valley floor. That's a little different and definitely kind of alarming, and probably a good call you didn't share with your wife at the time, because it's a little bit much for people to take in when shit like that goes down. And it's a pretty interesting encounter, and good for you that you, I'm sure you're probably watching this video, but good for you that you keep going back out there. And but one thing I'd like to tell everybody, when people always seem to be saying we're stepping in their territory, we're in their territory, we're removing their forest, when pertaining to either these beings or wildlife as a whole, don't forget, you guys, we are a part of nature, and this forest is our nature too. This forest is our forest too. It's not theirs. It's not nature's. It's not them and us. See, in the very beginning, we came from this. We survived from this. We grew up from this, and the majority of beings started creating their communities with a wall around them, safe, from everything else that typically runs around the forest and killed us years ago. And that's what happened. The majority of the human population decided to make their communities with a fenced area around them, and those communities just grew up and blew up. And then generations later, somehow, some humans think that outside the walls of the human communities is nature and their forest and their land, and we're trespassing on it, which couldn't be more farther from the truth. Okay? It's all ours. We're all in this round ball together. And if you go on Google Earth as an example, if anybody can, just zoom in on Google Earth and show me where the nature boundary is between nature and us, okay? That'd be pretty interesting. But anyways, aside from that, I'm kind of rambling. Yeah, thanks for sharing that encounter. And I'll admit it, when I'm calling elk, which I'll be doing again this week, and moose, and there's a deep little seed in the back of my head that's always potentially maybe almost dreading the possibility of at one time something's going to mimic my calls perfectly and keep mimicking it, my calls and coming into me, and that would make the hair on the back of anybody's neck stand up, especially after having personal encounters with these damn things. So anyway, there you go. There's another story, yet another one from a good, solid, hardworking, honest family guy. And I believe every single word that was sent in that email, as everybody should.